Side. WBRC 6 News starts with First Alert Weather.
And want to welcome you into this very special coverage of Hurricane Francine. We are looking live right now at New Orleans and that area bracing for impacts from the hurricane as it approaches from the south. This is a look from, you are looking at one of the traffic cams there in the area, of course, right there along I-10. As that system moves to the north, what we're going to be dealing with is some of those stronger winds making their way in across parts of Alabama. Meteorologist Matt Daniel joining us now. And Matt, we want to invite folks, if they haven't subscribed, to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because this is one of those great sources for where we provide updates like this.
Yeah, that's right. So we got our YouTube page. If we got all this exclusive content that you can access, it's all free. Just subscribe. And this is a good event for us and for you because we're going to be answering your questions in real time. I know we've had a lot of questions. I've had personal messages on my Facebook asking me, is it going to be a tornado here or there? We're going to try our best to answer it in the most simplified way we can and give you that latest information.
Yeah, that's right. And we have plenty of time right here on YouTube. So just sit back. We'll go through all this. We'll talk about the impacts not only here, but also along the Gulf Coast. And as of right now, the center of the system is about 50 miles offshore. So it's about to make landfall this afternoon into the evening. And I just want to stress here, and something I've been talking about the past couple of days, this is not a Hurricane Frederick level system that's going to move through here, but we will certainly feel those impacts around the state of Alabama over the next couple of days. We're going to have some gusty winds, a lot of rain, and there's also that threat for isolated tornadoes that we're going to talk about. So let me update you right now on the latest advisory for Hurricane Francine. Maximum sustained winds at 90 miles per hour. There was an oil platform off the coast just north of the center that reported an 85 mile per hour sustained wind earlier, and wind gust up to 100 miles per hour. So we are seeing those wind gusts around 100. The track brings us inland, and really the heaviest of the rain with this won't really work into our part of the state until after midnight tonight and through the early morning hours tomorrow. And then as the system tracks north throughout the day tomorrow, it's going to be a windy day. We could have some gusts 20, 30 miles per hour, maybe even some higher gusts. And then as we work our way into the afternoon, that's when that threat for isolated tornadoes starts to increase across the state, and we'll have to watch out for that later in the day tomorrow. But there, speaking of tornadoes, a tornado watch right now in effect for South Louisiana. I've been monitoring the feeds here from the National Weather Service out of New Orleans, and I noticed a few moments ago there was a tornado warning. It didn't last long, but it was for Plaquemines Parish. So we are starting to see those brief spin-ups, as we call them. I say spin up, but they're tornadoes. They're very dangerous, and sometimes they can develop very briefly with little warning. So that's why next couple of days, it's been a while since we've had a risk for storms or cells capable of producing tornadoes. So it's very important over the next couple of days that you have multiple ways to get those alerts in case we do have some warnings that develop here across our area. But at the moment, it's a tornado watch. It looks like that warning has expired. But as we go over to radar, you can see the center of the hurricane now approaching the coast of Louisiana. It's going to be approaching right around the Houma area. You can see it's all this is marsh here to the south. Grand Isles back in here, Leeville, Louisiana back in this direction. In fact, Matt has a couple cameras we'll go to here in a few moments to show you some of these areas, but also South Mississippi. I had someone was asking me about Slidell, already seeing some of that heavier rain there lifting north, Slidell and back in towards Picayune and Gulfport, Mississippi. You can see a lot of rain impacting those areas as well, and right around New Orleans, Lake Pontchartrain just covered up right now with all the heavy rainfall, but it did trend a little bit to the east, and that's going to take the core of the tropical system right across places like Baton Rouge. So Baton Rouge yesterday was actually included in the hurricane warning as it moves north here. We're talking not a major hurricane, but certainly could have some of those hurricane force wind gusts, 74 plus miles per hour as this moves inland. So you've got the threat of the hurricane force winds, of course, all this rain. There's going to be flooding issues. You got a lot of low land in here, so that's going to be a problem as well. And now the winds are starting to pick up. Here's a look at the current wind speeds there along the coast and approaching 60 miles per hour. So we certainly have the tropical storm force winds already impacting South Louisiana as this approaches. And for folks here, certainly need to be prepared for the possibility of some power outages with those kind of winds starting to pick up at this time. But you'll have a window in here next few hours, next 4 or 5 hours. We're going to see those winds steadily increase and likely seeing hurricane force wind gusts that will be tracking to the north. Peak storm surge, as you can see down in the South Louisiana right here, up to 6-foot storm storm surge possible, but actually over 6-foot storm surge, some of these locations here. I want to point out along the Alabama Gulf Coast, you can see in this area 3 to 6 foot storm surge in those areas. A lot of you have asked me about Dauphin Island and some of these areas, so there will be a bit of a surge as this moves north there. You can see a lot of that water is going to be pushed back in towards Mobile Bay at the moment. Of course, the ocean quite rocky here at this time. Gulf Shore 75 degrees, but we don't have whiteout conditions, anything like that along the Alabama Gulf Coast. In fact, the winds only at 11 miles per hour. So really those gusty winds haven't quite reached the Alabama Gulf Coast. It's going to take a little while even for those wind speeds to reach the Alabama Gulf Coast. But right now we're dry. We have a lot of clouds. You can tell that there's a tropical system brewing out there. If you've stepped outside today here in our area across central Alabama, mostly cloudy. We do have a few showers showing up to the south, but really the heavier rain doesn't quite work into our area until the evening tonight. You'll notice as we go into 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, that's when we really start to see that steadier rain back in across southwest parts of the area. And just as this enters our southwest part of the coverage area, could have some 40+ mile per hour wind gust in here. So places like Choctaw County, Washington County, if you're watching me around places like Sardis, Butler, Alabama, Livingston, and Point South, certainly want to make those preparations in case there are some random power outages early tomorrow morning. Those kind of wind speeds as this system lifts to the north. And then there's a look at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then what happens later in the day, what happens as these tropical systems move inland, they start to take on kind of like a comma look to them. You'll see it has this little tail where we have little what we call tropical downpours that rotate in towards the center of circulation. And these are the areas we have to pay close attention to if we do see an isolated tornado. Not a guarantee. Again, this is not a major tornado outbreak kind of setup, but you can get these tornadoes that briefly these cells that start to rotate. In many cases, I've seen a lot of tornado warnings. You won't even see a lightning strike with these, but they're basically like tropical downpours that start to rotate, and there's a lot of wind shear in the environment. So we'll have to watch the afternoon as we heat up, especially I think along and east of Interstate 65. The models have really locked in on east Alabama tomorrow as far as a threat for isolated tornadoes. We'll have to watch the afternoon. And then what's interesting is as the center passes to the north, we still have this area here. We're going to need to watch also on Friday. That's why we have included First Alert Weather Day on Friday for that possibility, as there could also be a few isolated warnings there on Friday as well. So we're going to be dealing with this not only tomorrow, but we're going to have to pay close attention to the radar as we go into the day on Friday. Again, as this system moves to the north, forecast wind gusts, you can see they're topping 20, 30 miles per hour. There's a look at 2 o'clock in the morning on tomorrow, and then you can see south and west. I was talking about some of those areas, even showing Tuscaloosa there. It's going to be a windy day tomorrow. Throughout the day, those winds 30, 40 miles per hour as this system moves north, but we're not expecting hurricane force wind gusts as this system tracks to the north throughout tomorrow. And again, a look at the tornado threat. We'll show you some of these maps, and you can see really tonight, as far as tonight goes, we really don't see that threat until tomorrow morning, starting to ramp up to the south, and then that threat starts to lift in to the north. So that's the latest on this, and we're going to go through some of these models as we continue to track this. Again, we're going to be watching tomorrow afternoon. I want to go to meteorologist Matt Daniel now. And Matt, I know you've been keeping a close eye on this system as it approaches the Gulf Coast. You had some of those camera views a few moments ago. Certainly looks like the conditions going downhill along the Gulf Coast quickly.
Yeah, that's right, Wes. We're looking at those conditions definitely going downhill as the storm's about 50 to 60 miles away of approaching landfall with 90-mile-per-hour winds. Been monitoring the chat, though, through our YouTube live stream. And if you're watching us, welcome. And don't forget to subscribe. Feel free to like and comment up below so we can answer your questions. So let's go ahead and get right to it. Amber actually sent a message in saying I got put under a wind advisory. Well, the National Weather Service actually issued a wind advisory about 30 minutes ago, and that includes most of central Alabama. And we get these wind advisories occasionally throughout the year, but we're looking at those pressure gradient winds, the sustained winds coming in from the east at 15 to 25 miles per hour throughout all of tomorrow. So this advisory is through all of Thursday, starting at midnight to midnight. And we're looking at those winds gusting as high as 40 miles per hour. And you have to remember, we've had a wet July, a very dry August, and now we're getting a lot of rain along with wind. So this is going going to put a lot of stress on those trees. It may not take a lot of wind, maybe 40-mile-per-hour winds to knock a couple of trees down, and of course that could result in power outages. So we just want to make sure you stay safe and prepared. We'll show you some of those ideas when it comes to preparing for those winds. With gusty winds, secure those loose items. Now's the time to do that this afternoon and evening. The rain's going to start to move in on the light side as we go towards sunset, and it's really going to pick up in intensity as we go into tomorrow morning. So if you've got furniture, trash cans, make sure they're secure as well. Clear out those storm drains and the gutters as well, because we're going to get some rain, and some spots are going to get more than others. And when you get these outer rain bands and they train over the same spots, some areas could see 4 inches plus, while others maybe just a half of an inch to 1 inch. So we're going to see a variety of rainfall totals all across central Alabama. And once again, when it comes to active weather on this First Alert Weather Day, we want you to make sure you're prepared. So make sure you download that WBRC First Alert Weather app and have multiple ways to receive those warnings. And definitely recommend a weather radio, especially overnight. I don't think that tornado threat's going to ramp up overnight while we're in bed, but we still want to be cautious, so we might want to have it turned on just in case. It's really going to ramp up, as Wes was talking about, tomorrow late in the morning and into the afternoon hours. And speaking of the YouTube chat, we've got some questions regarding that tornado potential. Let me go in, and Jordan has been patient. He posted earlier, how big of a chance does Hamilton, Alabama have of getting a tornado, and how worried should I be? Well, let's go ahead and show you that tornado threat if you can. So as we zoom on in, and feel free, if you got the camera, zoom on in to me and just this monitor. I want to make sure everybody can see everything that's in this map. I know it's a little bit far away, so if we can just zoom that camera in, that would be fantastic. So here's the outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. We are looking at that marginal risk in green. That's a 1 out of 5 threat. So that's the low end threat. So if you're in Hamilton, you are in that marginal concern for tomorrow. But based off what I've been seeing on the latest trends with those models, I think that tornado threat may amp up a little bit just to your south and east if you're in Marion County. So we're looking at that area in yellow. That's a slight risk. That's a 2 out of 5 on the scale, and that's where we could see those brief spin up tornadoes. When it comes to tropical landfall systems making landfall, there's a lot of friction, there's a lot of spin in the atmosphere, and these storms, or these tornadoes that develop, are usually very quick and they are usually weak, and it's very hard to detect sometimes. They'll spin up in a few minutes and then they can dissipate. So they're short-lived in most cases, but we're going to have to watch that, because as the storm lifts up to the north and we start to heat up tomorrow afternoon, we may have enough instability, enough spin to create some of those outer rain bands that could produce a tornado threat. So we're really going to be focusing on areas right along I-65, and as we go into tomorrow evening, that tornado threat may actually shift to the east. Now, I'm not expecting a widespread tornado outbreak by any means, but we definitely have to watch this, because these tornadoes could produce winds up to 80, maybe 100 miles an hour, and of course that can result in some damage. So we'll just have to watch this. It's hit or miss, and we're just going to have to watch it very closely. Got another question, more tornado related questions, because I know everyone's concerned about the severe aspect when it comes to severe weather. Kaylee said very windy in Pelham. So yeah, we're starting to see those winds gust in spots. Let me move my laptop so you can see me in this particular view. So we've got, what about the severe threat for east central Alabama? So let's go ahead and break down the ingredients. So I made this graphic out here so you can sort of see it when it comes to those impacts. We're going to break it down from west, the central, and the east. So for West Alabama, we're looking at the rain starting to pick up as we go into the overnight hours. And I think when it comes to those actual wind gusts, you're going to be a little bit closer to the center of Francine, which means the potential to see stronger wind gusts is a possibility. So in this area, I think we could easily see several inches of rainfall. I think that's where we're going to see the heaviest amount of rain initially tomorrow morning. And we're looking at those gusty winds at 30 to 40, but it would not surprise me if we see some isolated gusts up to 50 miles per hour. So that could actually knock a couple of trees down and create some power outages. So just make sure you keep your electronic devices charged for tomorrow, just in case you lose power. You can tune in, watch us, stream us, and get that latest information. But the tornado threat could actually enhance farther to the east. So right along I-65 from Coleman into Blount County, St. Clair, Jefferson, Shelby, Bibb into Chilton County. Yellows indicating that slight risk, or a 2 out of 5 when it comes to severe weather. I think we could see 2 to 4 inches. And the reason why I think we could see higher totals, if we see these bands just train over the same spot, rainfall rates could be easily 2 to 3 inches per hour, and that could cause some isolated flooding concerns. So we'll have to watch out for that. But with a little bit of heating in the day, there could be a couple of warnings that we're going to be tracking. And then in East Alabama, that threat is mainly going to be an isolated tornado concern as we go into the late afternoon and evening hours. When those outer rain bands start to impact East Alabama, that's the area we'll have to watch. So your time frame, especially if you're from Cherokee down towards Talladega and Nacusa, Tallapoosa counties, we're thinking probably late afternoon into the evening hours. So best way, have multiple ways to receive warnings. Don't be scared, be prepared. We'll be here on your side, keeping you up to date on any issues that develop all across the area. The good news is, of course, with Francine, we've been in a drought. We need the rain, and I think the rain will definitely see a good bit of that over the next couple of days. Wes, I know you've been monitoring the chat and the conditions that are out there. What's going on right now?
Yeah, Matt, I noticed on here someone was asking, why the northeast part of a tropical system do we often see the tornado threat? Well, the northeastern quadrant of a tropical system, you've got the most ascent, you have the most lift, you also have quite a bit of wind shear. It's where we look at that directional wind shear associated with these. When you look at a tropical system, you'll see the clouds, they're moving in different directions. You have what's called central dense overcast aloft. You have clouds that are moving more in a clockwise fashion, and then the low levels, you have a warm core low where those clouds are moving, or the circulation is moving in more in a counterclockwise fashion. So what you end up with is quite a unique system here, and as they intensify and you don't have quite as much environmental wind shear or dry air entrainment into these, it's like a top that starts spinning, and that circulation tightens, pressure's lower, and that eye becomes exposed, and that's why we can now see it from radar. And when you are tracking these, thankfully we have satellite, right? So we can see these way out when they're well out far from the coast, because we don't have radars all over the ocean. So that's why we can now see this as it approaches the coast of Louisiana. A lot of rain with this, but that northeastern side, again, we're talking about the threat of tornadoes. They have actually issued a tornado watch now that does include South Louisiana down into South Mississippi. There's Gulfport, Slidell. There were a couple of warnings, and I was monitoring, looked like the National Weather Service here in New Orleans. They were actually monitoring some rotation that was a couple of scans around the Harvey area, moving towards the Harvey area. So that's down in South Louisiana, again, what we're talking about here. It's going to be a little while before this enters into Alabama. And, we've had Opal move through. You remember that one. Hurricane Andrew, what was left of that in 92, actually moved across our area. And then we had, never will forget, Ivan that moved through the state. So we've had some of these systems that have moved into South Alabama and brought all the heavier rainfall and the even tropical to hurricane force wind gust across our area. Not expecting that level of a system. I just want to stress, and this is not going to be a system as for us. It's going to produce a foot of rain across Alabama. However, what's going to happen here, thankfully, we need the rain, right? So we've been in a drought, and a lot of this is going to be soaked up as the rain starts moving in overnight tonight into the day tomorrow. But as the system tracks to the north and starts to, bring more and more rainfall by late tomorrow, and we get some areas where some of the heaviest rain starts kind of training across those same locations, we could end up with a few trouble spots. So that's why we're mentioning localized flood threat with this as it moves to the north. Matt, do you have any other questions? I'm trying to pull the chat up here, but
Yeah, I've got some questions. If you want to come to me, we're talking about, I had one question asking about the Alabama Gulf Coast, and I think that's a valid question. You may have friends or relatives there that are wondering what's happening. We've got our live camera here at Gulf Shores. We got a red flag out there. Don't need to be out on the beach. We've got a rough rip current threat, 75 degrees. It's not too bad at the moment, but we're looking at those conditions going downhill. In fact, for Baldwin, Mobile counties, we're under that tropical storm warning. So we're looking at winds that could easily be right around 40 to maybe 60 miles per hour. And remember, we're on the northeast side of that storm, and that's where you're going to get the most of the wind and rain from. So that's why they're concerned about all that tropical storm conditions. The peak storm surge in yellow for the Alabama Gulf Coast up to 6 feet. So I'm thinking somewhere between 3 to 6. Then as you go towards Pensacola, we're looking at up to 3 feet, and same as you go along the Mississippi coast as well. So I want to show you the rip current threat. Put this together. It's going to be a high rip current threat for tomorrow going into into Friday. And then as we go into the weekend, the threat should reduce a good bit to the low to moderate stage as we go into the weekend. So that's going to be the good news for the Alabama Gulf Coast. But how much rain could we see? That could be a concern. Now, I do think the heaviest rainfall is going to stay to the west, where they could easily pick up 5-10 inches of rainfall in parts of Mississippi into Louisiana. Here in the Alabama Gulf Coast, the Florida Panhandle, maybe a couple of inches of rainfall. So flooding is a small threat, but I think the flood concern is going to be a little bit greater farther to the west. And they're looking at those temperatures tomorrow in the 80s, and we're looking at a good chance for rain tomorrow, of course, as the storm moves to the north. But as it moves away, the energy moves away, the rain chances Friday become a little bit on the isolated side across the area. So that's what we're looking at there. We've also had a lot of questions asking us about school closures. Obviously, that is not our decision to make. That is for those schools to decide the safety of those students. But we will say this, tomorrow morning we're looking at wind and rain, and that's going to cause some issues on the road. So if you have to go to work, school, use caution, allow plenty of time to get to your destination. What is that, Kim?
So, Matt, I just want to jump in here and talk about what we're looking at as far as some of these questions. We got a lot of questions. Someone asking about Munford. How's the weather in Munford going to be looking? And if you're watching me there, well, it looks like for tomorrow we'll start to see some of the heavier rain by late morning into the afternoon. There is an isolated tornado threat, so if you are in East Alabama, certainly make sure you have ways to get those alerts tomorrow later in the day in case we do have some warnings that happen. Checking out, Kaylee's worried about the threat of flooding and the threat of tornadoes. And of course, the threat of flooding is going to be a big story if you're down into southwest Alabama. I notice East Mississippi has a flash flood watch in effect. And I just want to stress here, with us coming out of a drought, this is a good thing. I mean,
it is, yeah.
Yeah, we need the rain. A lot of this will soak up right away. You know, one thing, and I mentioned this yesterday, since we've been in the drought, you may have noticed we already have a lot of leaves falling.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the trees are stressed, and we're already starting, and it's not necessarily the fall change, it's because it's been so dry. So, you know, if you have areas around your home, I know I have one spot that always, every time we have heavy rain, it starts to flood. Yeah, so I always have to clean off the drain, and, you know, just take this opportunity today to make some, you know, preparations around the house, because we're going to have some heavy rainfall for any heavy rain occasion.
You know, and to elaborate on that, so tomorrow's the main impacts, but looking ahead at Friday and Saturday, what's left of Francine is just going to kind of spin around. And some of the models are showing some storms and showers kind of training in spots across near the I-65 corridor. So we'll have to watch that Friday and Saturday, see how much we get tomorrow, and then see what it sets up Friday, because there could be a small threat for flooding too. So we're going to have to watch that as well. We have that First Alert Weather Day also extended to Friday. Although the biggest impacts are tomorrow, there's still going to be some impacts Friday as well. And we've also had some other questions, I believe. Let's see, I just saw it and the question just moved around. How much do you think at some point Central Alabama will be under a tornado watch? I think it's probably likely we'll see some kind of watch somewhere, right?
Yeah, and most likely you mostly need to watch the afternoon. As we heat up, we have that instability tomorrow, so we might see a watch pop up for tomorrow afternoon, and then maybe again on Friday. You know, as you talked about, these systems, you know, they're interesting. You know, we see them make landfall, and so many times we've had these systems move in and stall out, and the models kind of bring this thing inland, and then it just stays there and spins for a couple days to the north of us. So there's a chance that you're going to get an area where this rain just sets up for the next couple days, as you talked about. So we'll need to watch Friday as well, especially East Alabama. And this is not a situation where, you know, you track one storm and it's producing a tornado and we track it all the way across the state. You're sitting there, you're looking at, you've got rain showing up on radar, and then all of a sudden you see the signal that, hey, this thing's trying to rotate. So you get these quick warnings. They typically don't last long, maybe 5-15 minutes. You know, and
what's great is love our weather service here in Birmingham. They're great. They try to get rid of that false alarm warning, and they're going to be watching the radar closely. We're going to be watching it closely. If we see something suspicious, we'll let you know. I know a lot of people are going to be asking as well. I've already had a few of these questions on my Facebook page. They're asking about high school football Friday night.
Right. Yeah, I had someone asked about that earlier, and there's a chance that we're probably going to have some leftover rain, some scattered showers, maybe some scattered storms, and also for this weekend for the Auburn game as well down in Lee County. Just check that forecast, because there might be some scattered storms storms there as well.
So maybe you want to grab a poncho just in case.
Yes.
It's not going to be a washout though. There will be spots that stay dry, but there could be some rain in the area. So we'll be watching that as well.
Yeah, it looks like central, what happens here tomorrow morning, and I just want to go through this one more time as we look at some of the model data. And Matt, you were showing, well, we have access, that's the thing about here, and we have all the model access here at WBRC. Yeah. So you had the IBM, the graph is one of the new models, the Global Atmospheric High Resolution Forecast System, and this is the HRRR as it's called. Both great products here, but these models, they have a little bit of different with respect to the physics here. So we get a little a different view on this. But what's happening now is as this system is making a landfall, it's better organized, models, and we have more weather balloon data across the region. We have a lot more data that goes into this to help forecast, and they're both really coming into line here, showing that the heaviest of this rain, this northeastern quadrant, is going to be working into the southwest part of the area here late tonight. And someone was asking about, let me see what that question was. I think Greensboro is one of those areas in Hale County, Greene County. By tomorrow morning, by 6, 7 o'clock, we're probably going to have some wind gusts in there, 40 miles per hour perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So be mindful of that. And I always tell you, I've been saying it over and over, just keep those electronic devices charged. There might be some power outages, and we'll be watching that as well.
Yeah, just in case there are some random outages. So in the morning, we start out, we have a lot of rain. It's becoming quite breezy, quite windy during the day. As we get to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Matt, this is what we need to watch here. This little, I just call it a tail. It's kind of like a feeder band. It's just wrapping into that circulation. These little areas in here we'll need to watch in case they try to spin up. There's going to be a window in the afternoon as we heat up into the 70s. That added instability, we'll have to keep an eye on that. And then tomorrow night, we still need to watch it, but overnight, as we lose the heating of the day, that might help us out, help some of this weekend. But then watch as we go into Friday, notice it comes back. These little areas start to pop up again. So that's still around that one location. So we may end up, and I know East Alabama, we really need the rain. That's one of those areas we might actually end up with some decent totals. Notice Birmingham, if that sets up where you've got this south to north axis here with these off and on downpours through tomorrow night, yeah, flooding will be an issue.
Yeah, and I was looking at the Weather Prediction Center. They put up those daily outlooks when it comes to rainfall, and they were showing, they changed their outlook recently, showing maybe a little bit of a higher rainfall totals right around I-65, and I think it's because of those bands that those models are depicting. So yeah, you never know. There could be an isolated flood threat over the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll just have to watch and wait and see what happens. So
Kaylee says, I'm prepared for this weather event, cell phones charged and ready to go. Brody Wesson checking in over at Mississippi State, and Brody's one of our First Alert weather watchers. He says they're expecting, preparing for some of those impacts starting tonight. Amber, Matt asking about the Gadsden area in Etowah County. Is it safe from the tornado risk? Actually, need to watch that area as well.
Yeah, I think everyone that's in our area is going to have a threat to see an isolated tornado, but I really do think right along I-65 and into East Alabama tomorrow afternoon and evening could be the area that could set up for an isolated tornado threat. So we'll just have to all wait, watch, and see what happens. And once again, have multiple ways to receive those warnings. The WBRC First Alert Weather app, make sure it's showing up where you're at. It'll notify. It's a great tool to have.
Hey, Tania, I want to get Tania. If you could pull up on the computer here, someone was asking about, can we explain what peak surge is? And I want to pull up the storm surge map that I have here for the Gulf Coast and just talk a little bit about this, Matt. You know, we were mentioning South Louisiana, an area, of course, very prone to flooding. It's marsh. It's down in this area. We've seen a lot of tropical systems make landfall. You can see that this is showing up to 6 feet, but there's some areas in red right here where we could see 9 to 12 foot storm surge.
And I've got an updated graphic of that. And so if you can, Tania, if you can punch up links 2 on the router, that should show up and show a better, there we go. So yeah, and the red's up to 12 feet, and that storm surge threat's actually going to be happening between now and tonight as that storm's making landfall this evening. But yeah, 3 to 6 in yellow, and in blue it's up to 3 feet there. So the farther away you are from the center, you're going to see less storm surge. Closer to the center and off to the north and east, where you're getting that counterclockwise flow, that's unfortunately the area that's going to get that water from the ocean, from the Gulf, spreading into land, and that's where you can get a devastating flooding. You have to remember, hurricanes have multiple hazards. It's not just wind. We look at categories based off winds, but they have a flooding concern, they have the storm surge concern, so much.
That's the thing, the storm surge. I mean, if you go back and you look at some of the video when Hurricane Michael, it just blew me away how quickly that wall of water moved in. And that's the thing, you know, first thing you look at with a tropical system, you see, well, is it producing 100-mile-per-hour winds, 155-mile-per-hour winds, but every time it's the flooding, it's the coastal storm surge, catches folks off guard, and then ends up causing some of the most intense destruction that we see. And with this, up to 12 foot, I mean, wow. I mean, that's a big time storm surge. And to explain how this happens, of course, with these, as we mentioned, they bring the swells in with that south wind, that counterclockwise circulation just piles all this water along the coast. That's why, was it Ernesto? I know we had a system earlier this year where they ended up around Galveston dealing with lots of flooding, even though the system was 100 miles away. I mean, it was well away, but it brought in some surge there along the coast. And the way this is going to move in for South Alabama, and by the way, southwest Alabama, Mobile, Baldwin County are underneath tropical storm warnings right now. So they are expecting up to 6-foot storm surge. Likely see that in the Mobile Bay, those higher water levels as this comes on shore. But we really won't start to see some of those stronger tropical storm force type wind gusts, places like Mobile, Gulf Shores, Orange Beach until later on this evening.
Yeah, that's right. And I've got, I've had some people message me, also have a comment saying that they have a little bit of anxiety when it comes to tornadoes and storms. When it comes to tropical systems, hurricanes, tropical storms, their source of energy is warm ocean water. Without it, they start to weaken. So that's why we're not expecting hurricane conditions, because the storm is a little bit weaker. Once it moves over land, it's going to start losing its punch pretty much. So those winds are going to slowly go down as it goes farther inland. So that's why we're under that wind advisory. We're not under a tropical storm watch or warning. It would be a completely different scenario if this thing was moving 30 miles an hour to the northeast and it was a Category 3+ hurricane. That would be like Opal-like kind of conditions across the area. We're not seeing anything like that, but we're still looking at rain and wind that's going to cause some issues. That we just want to make sure you stay safe and just have ways to receive those warnings. So I understand those that are very anxious when it comes to active weather. Maybe your pets are anxious as well. Usually in these tropical systems, they're not going to produce a lot of lightning or thunder. It's just low-lying clouds, lots of rain, and gusty winds at times. And that's really what most of us are going to be experiencing. Some good soaking rain to help get rid of this drought. It'd be nice to get rid of the wind, though, because obviously it's going to cause a few issues in spots, but we'll have to just wait and see what happens as we go into the next 24 hours. Yeah,
someone asking about in Louisiana, the Cecilia area in Louisiana, which is not far from Lafayette. So we're talking about to the west, Matt, to the west of that center. So for those areas there, you're on the better side of this system. Probably have those strong north winds, of course, a lot of rain. But once this passes by, you won't have the prolonged impacts like what we're going to be seeing further east.
Yeah. So just continue to look into more of these. I think we've answered a good bit of these questions.
Yeah, I want to check and just make sure we're. I want to look at the watches and advisories one more time here for South Louisiana, and it does look like that area there around Lafayette also included in the tropical storm warning in that area. This is a look at the statement there from National Weather Service in Lake Charles. Just issued a statement here talking about the tropical storm warning has been canceled for West Cameron Parish, Allen Parish areas. It looks like the storm's about 110 miles southeast of Cameron, Louisiana, about 90 miles southwest of Morgan City at last check, moving northeast at 16 miles per hour, and storm strength there showing 90 miles per hour. And of course, they're concerned about the storm inundation, the storm surge there out along and east of that center, which a lot of this, of course, now with it tracking a bit further east, looks like over around the New Orleans area, Leeville, some of those places there in southeast Louisiana probably deal with some of the greatest storm surge associated with this.
Yeah, and I've got another question asking, is there a chance we could see a flood watch across the area? Right now, the Weather Service, they're actually updating their afternoon products as we speak, so there's a chance they could. Right now, they've already issued that wind advisory, so you probably got that notification on your phone. So that's the only advisory we're under right now. That doesn't begin until midnight tonight and continues throughout the day tomorrow for those potential gusts up to 30 to 40 miles per hour. I think because we've been in a drought and we need the rain, there's no need to have a watch at the moment. But obviously, if we get a lot of good rain tomorrow and then we see more chances for heavy rainfall going into Friday, there may be a chance. But I'm not going to predict what's going to happen, of what forecasters are going to issue. We're just waiting to see what happens. But there's a chance. But right now, no active flood watch for us.
Yeah, we've declared first alert weather days basically for those impacts starting late tonight, continuing throughout tomorrow. But just want to stress, you know, the one good thing about this, we're going to get some much needed rain out of it. It's going to be windy tomorrow. This will move on through. We just need to monitor the radar and just be ready to take action in case we do see a tornado warning. I mean, it's been a little while, so just double check. Make sure you have fresh batteries in your weather radio. I mentioned our weather app. Someone posted on here. I downloaded the weather app. Make sure you have the latest version. You have your location selected so you can also receive those alerts there on the weather app as this moves through. But it's been a little while. You know, the last time we had Ernesto, and then there was, you know, just last week we were talking about, wow, you know, we were talking about this active Atlantic hurricane season. We haven't seen anything. And when you look at since Ernesto until this thing formed, the last time we had that sort of window with little activity was like 1968. I mean, it was just incredible. But now, of course, look, yesterday's a peak of hurricane season. So this is expected this time of the year. And I'm really shocked that it's taken this long, given the forecast for us to see a system like this impact the area. Now, Matt, you noted earlier that there is another system that has formed out in the Atlantic. And I know we've been talking a lot about Francine, but if you haven't heard, there's a new, I guess it's still a depression, but it's way out over the Atlantic. And show us where that system's located.
We'll go ahead and break it down real quick. So obviously Francine's the main concern. You see this area in yellow, so that's the southeast coast. That's right off the southeast coast of the Atlantic. There's some models hinting at a low pressure developing over the weekend that could be hitting the Carolinas. So that's something that could develop over time. But then as we look farther out into the central and eastern Atlantic Ocean, we're watching two little disturbances, but this tropical wave that just moved off of Africa, that's actually Tropical Depression 7, and it has a chance to become a tropical storm later on tonight or into tomorrow.
And the name Gordon?
I think it is Gordon.
Okay.
I can look it up. I think I had it up. It's Gordon. So yeah, Gordon could be our next name. And yeah, yesterday was the peak of the hurricane season, right on par. We got a hurricane forming and now a tropical depression. So here you go.
You know, and it happens like this. You'll see, you know, 4 or 5 of these systems this time of the year, and then about a week or two it'll just settle down. So hopefully that happens.
Yeah, and I think 7, by the way, Tropical Depression 7, I will watch it, but I don't think it's going to have any issues to the United States, thankfully. We'll cross our fingers, watch it over time, but right now it doesn't look like it's going to be an immediate threat.
So truck driver from Birmingham to Sparta, Tennessee tomorrow. So what can I expect heading towards Chattanooga? Well, if you get an early start tomorrow morning, you'll probably get out ahead of the rain early in the day, out ahead of this during the early morning, driving in that general direction on 59. However, I think after lunchtime, you'll probably start to see some of those bands of rain reaching East Alabama. I don't know if it'll quite reach that far north, do you think, as far as early afternoon? May take a little while into the afternoon, but you know, driving a truck, though, with just to mention those winds tomorrow, 20, 30 miles per hour. We have wind advisory, so high-profile vehicles certainly want to keep both hands on the wheel.
It's going to be shaking at times, so be careful. And you have to remember, it hasn't rained much either, so the roads are going to be a little extra slick, too. So definitely want to slow down, have your lights on, be careful if you're out and about on the roadways. But yeah, I think that's about it with the questions. We are really so happy that you were able to join us on this YouTube chat and got a lot of great questions. Hopefully we're able to answer them. We're going to have more coverage later on this evening at 4. And throughout the day tomorrow, of course. We got you covered. And what was it called? We just call it babysitting the radar, right? That's what we're going to be doing.
Yeah, babysitting the radar, watching the radar in case we see anything. Of course, we give you that first alert. You know, we have a show at 6:30, just a reminder. First Alert Weather Extra. It's the only show like it that's ever happened in Alabama. 30 minutes, all about weather. It airs weeknights at 6:30, so we'll be talking all about this. Of course, we've got the team. We always have the radar covered and the forecast never left unattended. So we'll pass along plenty of updates, keep you well informed. Stay